Hi, folks. I'm going to take a page for something completely new in my series that I usually put up. I'm going to talk about politics for a moment. I don't know how long this will be. It depends on how far I want to go with it. But I wanted to talk about a couple of things, and the reason that I'm doing politics is I feel like not that there's necessarily confusion in politics. I just believe that answers are a lot simpler than people make them out to be in politics, and I think that that's a shame. I think that by and large, even though issues are complex, that's no doubt. It's just like the issue that I'm talking about right now, which is gun control and mass shootings, which are two separate things, and I would like to point that out from the beginning. I'm going to be talking about two separate things. They are definitely co-related, but that in no way, shape, or form makes them the same thing, because they are not. But I do believe that most answers are actually pretty basic, but what it requires is follow through. And I think that's what people lack in this. I think that most people, not most people at all, I don't think it's most people, but I think there is a group of people that, and I'm not talking about it being poor, middle class, rich, it doesn't matter. There's just a group of people, it's just based on the individual person and their characteristics, that don't have follow through to see things through. And because of that, they create more problems in life. Okay, whether it's through their family that they have that they don't nurture and take care of, or whatever, it doesn't matter. Um, it's our responsibility to follow through on the things that we're given in life. Everybody has to. You have to show up to work. You have to, you know, come home and eat dinner. There's all kinds of things you have to do, and if you don't do that, then you're breaking promises that you've made to people, and eventually it will come back to bite you. So we'll start with that. All right, so I wanted to talk about two separate issues, but they are co-related, which is gun control and mass shootings. Okay, gun control over here, mass shootings over here. Well, why? First of all, let's talk about why I think that they are two different things. Just because they are. Okay, mass shootings are something that are sensationalized and tabloidized, so to speak, in our media. Okay, they incite immediate attention because you want to go to that headline. Where did these people get shot? Blah blah blah. How many are dead? How many are injured? That's a salacious topic that will hook people into reading the article. Okay, and then we have over here gun control. Gun control is a separate issue that is correlated because what's being happened, the only thing that really crisscrosses on these two is that right now people are using guns to commit mass shootings. Okay, and just by its name, mass shootings, you can call it mass murder too if you weren't shooting, if you blew up a cafe or something like that, something violent like that. Okay, so that being said, all right, gun control um, is an issue that affects people. Okay, and I've talked about this with several different people and gotten different views on this. Because while it is your right to have guns in this country, it is also your right not to have guns in this country. Does that make sense? All right. So you can have guns, but you have to respect people that don't have guns too. Okay. And maybe they don't want to defend themselves with a gun if they don't have a gun. Okay. That's all. So you have to respect that right for them, just as they should respect your right to be able to carry guns. And what we're finding out is that the people that don't have guns are now finally finding it troubling that with the mass shootings over here, now all of a sudden we're having to put more and more security guards and things like that in place in order to stop gun violence. My dog's asleep, sorry. Anyway, so mass shootings or mass murders, all right, deal with a particular group of people, and they are usually young men. Okay, so what I've kind of decided, because I look at it in a very economics-based way, okay, or sociologically based way. All right, what is the group that is causing this, and what can we do to fix that group? Okay, and there are many different things that exist in our culture's statements about it right now. There's mental illness. There's that violent offenders shouldn't have guns. There's all kinds of stuff, blah, 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 that go down the line. But they're not getting to what it is, I don't think, which is that this group is the one that is causing it. Okay? This group is young men who are isolated from society. Okay? And I'm sure I'm sure that if you looked at statistics of these shootings, okay, because there's probably two types of shootings that go on. There's gang-related violence, and then there's actual person goes into someplace and shoots up people, churches, whatever. It doesn't matter. Walmarts, whatever. Okay, so you have all of that on one side, okay, but it's dealing with a particular group, and it's usually disenfranchised young men, and the older they go up, I'm sure the more planned and violent it is, because the longer they've been isolated from society, okay, which is a form of mental illness, don't get me wrong, but when you say the word mental illness, now you have to bring in all of that, okay, if you look at it sociologically, okay, because mental illness is not just people that shoot up people, okay, mental illness is people that deal with depression and harsher mental illnesses and all that stuff, okay? And most of those people, just like the people that carry guns, do not cause any problems in society, okay? So you have to keep in mind that even if you are using mental illness as a standard to determine if someone has a weapon or not, keep in mind that there are many, many people that have mental illness that are perfectly fine. They medicate, they regularly see their psychiatrist, whatever it is. Like, sure, they may have problems, but we all have problems. Okay, maybe theirs are just more severe because they're dealing with a chemical imbalance in their brain. Okay? And again, I'm not saying that they should or should not have weapons. That's up to someone to decide. That's not me. That's licensed to understand that. Okay, and it usually involves, have they had a violent past? Are they prone to being part of these types of things, to violent acts? Okay, so I'm going to get back to gun control for a second. Now, you can make all weapons illegal. Okay, you can. We in the society can. The amendment that is there is not there so that it's made to be put in stone. Okay, that's why it is an amendment. Okay, this is not something that needs to be 100% there. Okay, we can control guns and we can monitor them. Okay, that's perfectly fine. But I would point this out, and this is, I'm going to use this a lot in these political theses speeches that I do. When you make something illegal, you immediately turn it into a black market capitalist endeavor. All right. So if you think about it like this, we already have problems with the Mexican border, with them trafficking drugs and things like that of that nature. It's already dangerous down in southern United States for where they cross and do things like that, because they're bringing in illegal drugs and well, people too, but that's a whole separate issue, and that's not something I'm going to touch on here. But they're bringing in drugs and things like that because they're illegal. Okay, if they were in a pharmacy, then that would be different. If it was regulated and you had to go into a pharmacy, then that would be different. Then they wouldn't be coming from there, or at least not as much, because maybe someone wants to abuse drugs outside of a doctor's script, but that's completely different. So, you know, what it is, and I don't want to get into the legalization of all drugs. That's a completely different topic. But what I'm saying, if I can bring it back around for a moment, okay, is that you're creating a black market for it, okay, when you make something illegal. So when they have problems with their distributor or supplier or their customers, they're not seeking the law. They're not taking people to small claims court because they bought a dime bag off of them and they paid with a fake $5 bill or something, or whatever a dime bag costs. I don't know. But see what I mean? They're taking it directly to them. And usually it's another illegal act to solve that problem. So you create an underground market for it that has to regulate itself. Okay, it can't have policemen and law to protect it. So it is now becoming illegal, and that would be the same thing with guns if you made them illegal. Okay, because we live in the most capitalized nation that has ever existed. I can't think of any other nation that is hyper capitalistic as we are, which is both good and bad. There are good things to it and there are bad things to it. There are always things like that to it. That's just the way it is. But what I want to get back to is that if you make them illegal, then you create a market to sell them. Okay? And automatics are not that hard to modify from a semi-automatic. If you talk to any person that knows anything about guns, it's extremely easy to do. Okay? So the thing is that you don't want to give policemen more responsibilities that they already have. Okay? Policemen are already taxed to the max, taking care of a lot of the broken parts of our society that we don't like to fix. Okay? And they do it all the time. For every bad cop that you see on TV, there's at least 300 good cops that are burnt out and working the beat with no thanks whatsoever for doing it. They see the worst of the worst every day. They could tell you horror stories that would keep you up at night and all that kind of stuff. And I'm not justifying police actions or anything like that. That's a separate topic, and I don't care to discuss that. But what I'm saying is that it's very, very, very hard for policemen, and if you give them an extra responsibility, which is now they have to monitor guns, that's more policemen that you have to put on the street. It just is. It's just by numbers, that is more policemen. We already have huge drug problems, and making it illegal has not stopped it. It doesn't matter how much you make something illegal. There are people that are still going to do it because they can benefit from it and they can profit from it. And it's the same with guns. But there is a huge responsibility that is put on someone that buys a weapon. Because as I said before, on the back of this hand, like I'm pointing out, there are people that want to own guns, and there are people who do not want to own guns, okay? And if you own guns, you have to respect people that do not want to own them, okay? Because some people, it's just not their thing. I don't own weapons or anything like that. It never appealed to me. I like to shoot guns in a range and stuff like that and have fun, with rifles and stuff like that. It's a perfectly fun thing to do. But I don't like the responsibility of having them because it's too heavy a responsibility. And it really is a heavy responsibility because it is a weapon that is designed to kill. So you have to keep that in mind, okay? So, what you can do is that you can make sure that people that own guns are being more responsible with them. And I think that that's an easy kind of thing, especially if they have young people, especially young men, that can be around them and have access to those weapons, okay? Because these are the people that are doing the mass shootings. Makes sense, right? If you have young men around your house and they're kind of disenchanted with the world, and maybe they play violent video games or whatever it is. Again, and I'm not trying to stigmatize violent video games. I'm not. But what I'm saying is that it's not like a mass shooting happens in a vacuum. Okay, there are many, many symptoms that lead up to this. It's just that people don't do their due diligence to follow through. Okay, so that when these guys finally snap and they go on this, they have the weapons to access, and then they just go off and do it. And there are many, many things, and that's not for me to discuss. I don't have the statistics on, XYZ QAB makes a mass shooter. There may be a formula for it, but as far as I know, the thing that is most correlated with all of them is that they are men from probably age 16 to probably 35, okay? In between that time period is the people that are doing these. So that's the only real statistic we have that can kind of curb the mass shootings, okay? And I think that it speaks to what's going on in our society now. Okay, because gun control is kind of out as far as I'm concerned, because no matter what you do to modify it, first of all, you can't do a lot with it anyway. I mean, there is an amendment in our Constitution that allows for them. Okay, so overturning that is not an easy task to begin with. And secondly, I don't know if it's going to do as much good as people think it would, because it would create a black market, one, and that also, like, what are you going to do? Are you going to make people turn in their weapons? Too? Like, where does all of that stop and start, right? So that's just too complicated. So you have to work with what you've got, okay? Which is now, what do we do about mass shootings, knowing that people of a certain age and gender do these? Right, well, we have to address what's going on with that age and gender. And I do believe that there are a lot of young men in this society who feel completely out of sync with society. Okay, society for thousands of years kind of followed the same formula. I think basically it was kind of and again, I'm not trying to be stereotypical, I'm just pointing out like what at least people would think these men would probably think would happen, is that for a long time men were in charge and women followed, right? Or men won the bread and then women took care of the house, right? But now everything is shifted. Women can have the bread, they can take care of the house, they can do whatever. So, and now they have more choices, right? And these are probably not the alpha men of society, to be honest with you. They're not probably very charismatic when it comes to the opposite sex or the same sex, if that's the thing for them. So they're being pushed further and further away. And the society, by and large, because of the internet now, is very isolating. Okay, because you can feel like you live on the internet, which is just a computer screen that sits in front of you. It's not even really real. So they feel disenchanted by that too. So there are some things that can be done to help young men feel more acclimated to society. And I think one of them is getting them involved in groups instead of just shuffling people off, because these men are not going to be interested in basketball, baseball, football. They'll probably be interested in chess or Dungeons and Dragons or all kinds of different stuff that's more creative and requires more thought process rather than putting a ball in a hoop. And I'm not saying that doesn't. It certainly does. But it's a physical aspect, too, that they're probably not capable of doing, or at least don't feel confident enough to do. So getting men involved in groups is probably one of the best ways, because for years now, and there's a famous book called Bowling Alone that came out, I don't even know, it's many, many years ago, that talks about how we as a society are getting more and more isolated. That there used to be bowling leagues that people got involved in, and now there's nothing like that goes anymore in society. And because we're isolating people further and further, we're seeing this as a reaction to that. So instead of isolating young men, we need to be bringing them into groups so that they can talk and get their feelings out, or they can be part of society. They can meet people, meet the opposite sex or the same sex. They can interact more and do things like that. And I do think that that's practically something that is free that would really, really help. I don't think it's again, like with most things in politics, you just have to figure out who's doing it and what you can do to help that. Okay, so that's kind of my whole thesis on gun control. Okay, because in my personal opinion, I don't care what kind of weapon you have, you just need to be safe with it. Okay, that's it. Like, you can have a flamethrower or a bazooka, I don't care. But if it falls into the wrong hands, that's your responsibility, because you purchased those things. Okay, so don't blame someone else because you were irresponsible with the upkeep of a dangerous item. Okay, so that's just my personal opinion. Okay, and I think that that's enough for this particular topic. So till then, Auf Wiedersehen.